going to take every single one of us in this room and more. There are people who share our values who've just never been asked to join this movement. Today we're asking you. We need every single one of you to sign up right now to knock doors, make calls, and be a caucus volunteer. You can join us at our debate watch party Thursday at 6 p.m., at our labor rally, at the New Year's celebration with Bernie in Des Moines, and most importantly, get everyone you know to show up to caucus on February 3rd. So together, we're going to win Iowa when we put in the work. Thanks, everyone. And now here's someone who's not afraid to put up a good fight. Help me welcome Randy Bryce.
How we doing, Iowa? Are you awake? A little bit better. Louder, louder. It's been a long day for some of us. It is so fantastic to be here in Iowa. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Randy Bryce. I ran for Congress last cycle against a guy that many of you probably are more familiar with. Name is Paul Ryan. And I like to say former Speaker of the House. And that was thanks to all your help, because people from all across the country had a lot to do with taking out the Speaker of the House. But I'm here. I'd just like to let you know about how I came to know Senator Bernie Sanders. A few years ago, another guy we just recently got rid of in the same election, we had a guy named Scott Walker get elected to be governor. And one of the first things he did was this thing called Act 10. And it's similar to what the attack that took place here against the public sector workers happened. He did that to us as well. And he called it dropping the bomb. Literally said he was going to drop the bomb on public workers. Well, we were looking for help from anywhere that we could get it. That was when I first became very politically involved. And out of all the candidates running for president today, we had one person show up. That one person was Senator Bernie Sanders. And he showed up at a Fighting Bob Fest. And granted, at the time, he was a senator running for Senate in Vermont. He wasn't running for anything else. It wasn't about him. It was about the workers of Wisconsin. And that's something that I'll never forget, about how much I appreciate him going out of his way to come meet us. A few years later, he decided he was going to run for president. And I remember getting a phone call. I'm a union iron worker by trade. I was on the 32nd floor. It's great to have a time now too when you're not proud, you're not afraid to say, I'm a proud union member. And that's also thanks to what Senator Sanders has been doing around this country. I was working on a high-rise in downtown Milwaukee, and I got a phone call while I was eating my lunch. And it was somebody that was claiming to be from the Bernie Sanders campaign for president. So I'm like, I'm thinking, who's calling a construction worker to ask him to come speak at a presidential rally? I mean, I knew people say I have a big mouth or am outspoken, depending on if you ask a Republican or a Democrat in the state. So I'm thinking I'm getting punked. And I was like, sure you are. And so they went on, and it turned out that it was a legit phone call. So I was just wowed that what presidential campaign is going to call up a guy working on a construction site, basically a nobody, and have them come speak at a presidential rally. Not only that, but before the phone call ended, they asked, are there any picket lines around? So I'm thinking, wow, who would go out of their way to come and walk on a picket line? And if you've seen Bernie Sanders, anytime he's running for president, that's what he does. And look at him compared to these other candidates that we have and how they interact with the people on the picket lines. Senator Sanders gets it. And working people understand that. We know he's genuine, he's authentic, and we can trust him. Fast forward a few years after, when I decided to run for Congress. And now again, it's, trying to get all kinds of help because everybody couldn't stand Paul Ryan. Myself, I remember watching the State of the Union address, and there were three people. There was, the president right in the middle, and in the right-hand part of the screen was Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House. I used to take my Proud to be a Union Thug t-shirt and cover up that corner just so I didn't have to see that smug face. And it worked for a while, but I was like, wouldn't it be great if I didn't have to do that? We had somebody else sitting up there. So people in our community asked me, they knew I was always up for a good fight. They're like, Randy, could you do something to take this guy out? So we ended up building a coalition. And one of the people that I thought that could really help get it jump-started was Senator Bernie Sanders. So we had a meeting, and I asked him for help. And he was like, what can I do? Would you, if I come to visit, would that be great? And I was like, well, Senator Sanders, you only won 71 out of 72 counties in the state of Wisconsin. Pretty popular. If you would show up, that would mean everything to our campaign. He came not once, not twice, 3 times, several events in the state. And I mean, just having that belief in me taking on the 3rd most powerful Republican in the country meant everything. So when he decided to run again and they asked if I would be a national surrogate for him, I was like, absolutely. I would love to. It's a privilege and an honor. And hopefully there are a lot of events in the wintertime in California. But the places that I come from, it's similar to here. And I had the opportunity to get to knock some doors for the senator today. And it was great. I was asked, did you bring a jacket? Yes, I did. And we had a system, where one person drives, the other person gets in. You can warm up for a little bit. But when I think about Senator Sanders, he's going to be that person. I mean, I trust him. I've gotten to know him over the years. And out of all the candidates, he's the only one that I'm positive when he gets behind a closed door and there's some billionaires or some lobbyists or somebody trying to offer some kinds of temptation to him, he's going to tell him where to go. He's going to tell him where to put that money. And it's not going to be into his pockets or into his pack. Just the fact of how much money he's been able to raise and talk about needing to get the money out of politics says everything. Smallest donations, but yet he's been able to raise the most. He's not a well-known name that's already running out of money that needs a super PAC. That's sincerity. That's genuineness. He even gave my son, we were in New Hampshire a couple of weeks ago, and anybody see him dancing on the floor, on the dance floor? The video's going around? Oh my God, could he bust a move? It was amazing. But, so when I'm asked to come out and speak on behalf of Senator Sanders, he's the man. And I've seen how he interacts with my son, but he's somebody that working people trust. And I trust him. And having come from a place where I had nothing after getting out of the Army, working with homeless vets, being diagnosed with cancer and not having insurance, having it, take me down into bankruptcy, finally finding a union job. That was my ticket to the middle class. And now looking at what Senator Sanders is going to bring, I mean, he's talking about increasing the union density for everybody. And that's exactly what we need. We need more union membership, not less. Because it's getting to the point. I mean, looking back, there was a time in our country where one good paying job was enough to raise a family. And then it got to the point where the dad needed to get another job or the wife needed to get another job. But it's taken more than one job to be able to make it. And after that, we're getting to the place now where it's almost like you need to have somebody that has a good paying job and somebody else that has good health benefits. That's not the America that I want to live in. That's not why I wear the uniform. I don't have a problem with wealthy people. I have a problem with greedy people. Senator Sanders is exactly what this country needs today. We have the worst president in the history of our nation making decisions that, I mean, some of it, I say it, you go to sleep every night and the bar is on the ground and you think it can't get any lower than that. Then you wake up, all you gotta do is check a Twitter feed and then grab your shovel because you're gonna be digging to put that bar a heck of a lot lower. But it is such an honor and a privilege to be able to speak on behalf of Senator Bernie Sanders. I'm looking forward to not just having him in the White House as our president, but to finally having an organizer in chief. that understands the struggles that we face. He knows my story, and it's a story that too many others have had to go through too. We're a lot better than what we're seeing. And this weekend, seeing the field team for Bernie, which is just an unbelievable grassroots army that's been taking place throughout the entire country. We're talking 32,000 doors. I got to have one packet. Hopefully, you'll all grab a packet, make some phone calls, do whatever it takes, because Senator Bernie Sanders, when he gets in that White House, he's going to fix things that need to be fixed. So I just thank you all for having me tonight. Looking forward to a full day tomorrow. Let's get this man elected. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage veteran and former union pipe fitter Thomas Blanchard.
Hello, Burlington. Is anybody here fired up to see the next President of the United States? I know I am. I'd like to take seconds to introduce myself. My name is Tom Blanchard. I grew up in a small little town on a small farm up in Goose Lake, Iowa, about 2 hours north of here. Might have heard of Northeast High School. Once in a while on Channel 6, we get it not, but now I live with my wife and 2 dogs and a cat in Clinton. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. A couple of months ago, I was given the opportunity to introduce Senator Sanders in Clinton, and shortly thereafter, I was contacted by the campaign regarding the making of an ad for TV. Some of you may have seen my 30 seconds of fame. I hope it helps. I hope. First thing, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. To thank you for caring enough about our country and our democracy to get up off the couch on a cold Saturday night and come give Senator Sanders support and give his plans a listen. Second, I would like to thank Senator Sanders and Senator Sanders' staff personally. First, I'd like to thank the Senator for his almost 40 years of public service. 40 years! Now, I'm going off script here, so they're going to get excited. But most of us spend 40 years trying to get ahead. But public service, you're guaranteed. You're only going to go a certain. And to give 40 years for that cause, that's a lot of dedication. That's all I want to say. But mostly, I would like to thank Senator Sanders for the chance and the opportunity to actually be a part of something to move my country, our country, in the right direction. Way too often, I sit there feeling helpless with no opportunity to affect the things I see going wrong. Senator Sanders has given me that chance, and I'm very, very grateful. Over the past few days, as I was preparing for tonight, I tried to focus on specifically what it was that had pointed me towards Senator Sanders back in 2015. The first thing that came to mind was his Medicare for All plan. Is anybody else here on the wish insurance plan? As in you wish you had some, like me? I wish I had some, but I don't. Deadline's tomorrow, by the way. And then I thought about his college plans and his tuition debt forgiveness plans. My eldest daughter is a graduate of Iowa State University, and I'm extremely proud of her. She landed a great job with Iowa State University, and as a parent, she's set. I couldn't be happier. But I still can't figure out why you have to go in debt that far just to have a chance at a decent standard of living. That's just not right. And I thought about other parts of his plan. I thought about the paid for prison, or the profiteering that's from incarceration that goes on in this country right now. There's just something fundamentally wrong with the reality that the very country whose name is synonymous with freedom is incarcerating its people at 4 times the rate of communist China. That's just absurd. Only blind people can see that that is a key to success, a path to success. Realizing that I was basically in agreement with all of Bernie's policies, I realized that it wasn't Bernie's policies that had drawn me to him. As I considered that, my mind drifted back to my 12 years in the Navy and what it was during those times that mattered. And the answer boiled down to integrity. Could a man or woman be counted on when things went really bad? And in the service, things do go really bad sometimes. You need to know that you can count on this person. And then I considered all the years that I had been in the Pipe Fitters Union, and all the years my father and grandfather, who were also in the Pipe Fitters Union, and all the stories they had told me over the years. And all those stories boiled down to a man's integrity. Could his work be trusted? Could his word be trusted? And then, as my thoughts turned towards the body of work that is Senator Sanders' career, I realized that with a single word, I just figured out what it was that mattered to me. As a father of 4 millennial daughters, and now a beaming proud grandfather, I realized that the integrity of the next president of the United States is truly what matters to me. I believe that the country that my grandson is going to inherit is going to be determined by the outcome of the 2020 election. I don't think there's any time to waste. This is it. This is it, folks. We as a nation are on a precipice. We can reject fear and hate, and we can embrace diversity, or we can fall back into the ism abyss of racism, sexism, and everything else with an ism behind it. We as a nation have fought and struggled for far too long to get out of this ism abyss. I, for one, will never contemplate willingly going back into it. We've come too far to go backwards now. The nation that I want for my grandson is going to require a president that has the wisdom to see beyond the profits of just today, the courage to tackle the big problems facing both the nation and the world, such as climate change and our dependence on planetary killing fossil fuels. And it's going to require the integrity to insist that all Americans, not just the 1% or the 1/10 of 1%, but all Americans get to share in the spoils of this great nation. But at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not about my daughters or my grandson. It's not even about Senator Sanders. It's about us. And what could happen when little old you and me come together to become big us. As big us, there is no challenge that we cannot meet, no crisis that we cannot handle, and no ceiling to the future greatness that we can attain. Tonight we have with us a man whose entire political career has been a personification of integrity, a man who had the wisdom to not get caught up in the fervor of a post-9/11 world and actually voted against going to war in Iraq. A man with the courage to take on big oil, big pharma, Wall Street and Walmart. The man who is going to lead us into a future of big us. Give it up, Burlington, for the next president of the United States, Bernie Sanders.
Please welcome to the stage member of IAMAW Local 1010, Carrie Duncan.
Oh dear, I can't even fall off the stage for that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie L. Duncan. I am a proud union sister of IAMAW Machinist Local 1010. I also serve as an elected machinist production chief steward at the Iowa Army Ammunition Plant in Middletown, Iowa. 12 years ago, now mind you, 12 years ago, before becoming a machinist, I worked in food service at a school cafeteria. I love my job there, by the way, too. The wages, though, were so low that I couldn't afford health care insurance, and often debated if I could seek medical care when I needed it the most. Despite working 40 hours a week, I was left to pay significant medical bills, slipping further and further into debt. The stress of my financial worries were horrendous. Being a part of a union has ensured that I not only have health care coverage, but also livable wages to offset the cost of my premiums. Today, however, wage stagnation and rising health care costs are putting my brothers and sisters in the same situation I endured 12 years ago. And that's not right, no. Union workers like us are facing the threat of medical debt and bankruptcy all across the country. Thankfully, in Senator Sanders, we have a presidential candidate we can trust. Woo! Bernie's voting record reflects his passionate commitment to the United States workforce and the rights of every person to have the respect and dignity that they deserve. With the Workplace Democracy Plan, Senator Sanders will eliminate right to work for less. Senator Sanders will ensure every public sector has the freedom to negotiate and, through a majority sign-up process, enable working people to unionize. Working class people are barely scraping by, while corporations and the 1% continue to get richer. It is time to level the playing field by bringing accountability back to our nation. Bernie Sanders is the only leader who has a concrete plan to bring about the change that will make our system work for all people. And now, stand with me, brothers and sisters, as I welcome the next President of the United States, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you all very much for coming out on this beautiful warm evening. It's cold here. And it reminds me of the other Burlington that I live in. This is Burlington, Vermont. So let me thank Lizzie for the music she provided. Let me thank Randy Bryce. Randy, I don't know where Randy is. He's here? Randy here? Hey, Randy. Randy has played an important role in contemporary politics because he forced the previous Speaker of the House not run for re-election, and that set the whole tone for 2018. So thank you, Randy, and let me thank the local TV star, Tom Blanchard. That was a great ad, Tom. Thank you. And let me thank Carrie for all the work she does with the machinists and fighting for the trade union movement. I want to begin by giving you a quote from a guy who was a hero of mine and of many of yours. His name was Nelson Mandela. And you remember Mandela. Mandela walked out of jail in South Africa to become president of South Africa. Quite a transition. And Mandela said something that I thought was very profound. He said, "Everything seems impossible until it is done." Everything seems impossible until it is done. Anyone ever thought about what he means by that? What's that about? That's right. Don't give up. In other words, what seems so impossible today, tomorrow is not a big deal because everybody knew it should have happened anyhow. That's what he meant by that. And what he's telling us is that we are bombarded. In his case, it was apartheid in South Africa. You can't change the system. They are too powerful. It is impossible. Why are you going to jail to fight this? You can't win. That's what that was about. And in many ways, we have got to deal with that issue right now. We are told day after day that you cannot change a system in which, as Carrie mentioned, wages have stagnated in this country for 45 years. All right, the average American worker today is not making a nickel more than he or she made 45 years ago, despite what? Huge increases in productivity and technology. So every worker here is producing a lot more than somebody did 45 years ago, but you're not making any more money. Meanwhile, while we got people in Vermont and in Iowa working for horrendously low wages. I will not forget talking to a woman in Des Moines, trying to raise 3 kids, working for $10.50 an hour. You can't raise 3 kids on $10.50, but that's true all over the country, and you got people working 2 or 3 jobs. Meanwhile, over the last 30 years, the wealthiest 1% have seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth. And you know what happened to the wealth of the bottom half of America? It went down, okay? So you see now in America more income and wealth inequality than any time since the 1920s. So you're looking at the economy today and be, oh, the economy is doing really good. Well, yeah, if you're a billionaire, you're doing really well. Michael Bloomberg, it is phenomenal, you know. But if you're an ordinary person, you are struggling hard to take care of your family. You're struggling hard to pay for the health insurance you need and get the health care that you need. You're struggling hard to figure out how you might be able to send your kid to college, and you are worried that your kids may likely have a lower standard of living than you do. And in the midst of all of this stuff, in America today, unbelievably, our life expectancy is actually going down last 3 years. Anyone have a clue as to why? Why? That's right. All right, there are a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons, what the doctors, the people who study this thing, they talk about diseases of despair. What they're talking about are people, in a sense, giving up because they're struggling every day and going nowhere in a hurry. They're worried about their kids. And you know what they're doing? They're turning to drugs, opioids, heroin. They're turning to alcohol big time. And in some cases, people are actually turning to suicide, and we're seeing suicide rates go up. And that's why actually at a time when life expectancy should be soaring, it is actually going down in America. A whole lot of despair and a whole lot of pain. And as a country, the truth is that politicians don't talk about those realities. There are millions of people who feel left out of the political process, and they're saying to themselves, who knows what I'm feeling today? Who knows the struggles that I'm going through with my kids, with my families, with my parents? Does anybody give a damn about that? And what this campaign is about is trying to talk about issues and bring about ideas that address the pain of working families in this country. That's what the campaign is about. So you got a situation in Washington right now where, by and large, we have a corrupt political system. What does that mean? It means that I believe, and I know you believe, in democracy. It's not a radical idea. And what democracy means, if we were a town meeting right here in Burlington, Vermont, and you have a town meeting, which we do every year in cities and towns all over the state, people argue about how much they want to spend on the roads, on education, on municipal services, and they raise their hands and they vote. That's one person, one vote. But what you got now in this country are a small number of billionaires who, because of corrupt campaign finance law, are allowed to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. Randy Bryce, am I right about that? All right. Randy ran in a situation like that because the big money interest said, we don't want a pro-worker, pro-labor guy in the Congress, and they spent the fortune and lied a lot about him. We need to overturn the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. We need to move to public funding of elections. We need a democracy where anybody, any working class person, middle class person, low income person can run for office and win based on his or her ideas, not having to cater to the needs of billionaires. And I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something that I am extraordinarily proud of. I truly am. And that is that in this campaign, up to this point, we have received over 4 million campaign contributions from over 1.2 million people. That is more people and more campaign contributions than any candidate in the history of the United States of America has received. I don't have, never will have, a super PAC where billionaires can put dark money into a campaign. I don't go around to wealthy people's homes and walk out with a few $100,000. Our average contribution is $18. And the people who contribute to our campaign overwhelmingly are working people. They're teachers, they're people who work at Amazon, at Target, fast food restaurants, and we're very proud of that. And when we talk about where we want to go as a nation, the bottom line is not complicated. We need an economy and a government that work for all the people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. Right now, if Mitch McConnell, who is the Republican leader in the Senate, all right, if McConnell were here, he would tell you straightforwardly what he believes. And what McConnell believes is we should give more tax breaks to billionaires, and we should cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That is, I'm not interpreting, that is what he says publicly. He'll give his reasons why. But you go around this town, you go around my town, and you ask anybody out on the street, do you think it makes sense at a time when 3 people in America own more wealth than the bottom half of American society? Do you think it makes sense to give massive tax breaks to billionaires and then cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? If 95% of the people will tell you that that's crazy, I would be surprised if it was only 95%. Nobody believes it. But that is the agenda coming from Washington. Donald Trump ran for president of the United States, and he came to Iowa, spent time here. And he said, and he won here. And he said, you know, I'm a different type of Republican. I will not cut Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Take a look at his budgets. Again, it's public information. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Just look it up. Massive cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and cuts to Social Security Disability Fund. That's what he did. Those priorities of cuts to programs that working families need and tax breaks for billionaires, that doesn't happen by accident. It happens because that is what the big money interest in this country want. That is what they pay for. And if some billionaire's going to give you a campaign contribution, they want something in return. Now, you know, there are a lot of candidates who say, yeah, I raise money from the rich and the powerful. It doesn't impact me. Really? Why do they give you the money? Because they're just nice guys who want to spend the money? Of course they know what they are doing. So our job is to create an economy and a government that work for all of us. How do we do that? What are some of the things that we've got to do? First of all, it's fairly obvious, and Kerry was talking about this, that if you work 40 hours a week in America, the richest country in the history of the world, you should not be living in poverty. I don't think that's a radical idea. How does it happen? Think about it. How does it happen that today the minimum wage here in Iowa is what, $7.25 an hour? I mean, How pathetic is that? I mean, you can't live on 8 1/4. You surely cannot live on 7 1/4. I mean, so you're living, I just don't know. I don't know how anybody can live on 7 1/4 now. You can't do it, all right? So it is not a radical idea. People say, Bernie, your ideas are so radical. It is not a radical idea to say that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not live in poverty. You should have a minimum level of security. We've got to raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. And I want to tell you that during the last campaign when I came here to Iowa, and we were in Burlington actually, and I said, we've got to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Everyone said, well, it's an extreme idea. It's a radical idea. You know what's happened since? 7 states in this country in the U.S. House of Representatives have, in fact, raised that minimum wage to $15 an hour. What else do we do? You provide equal pay for equal work for women. Not a radical idea. If a woman is doing the same work as the guy next to her, she should not make 80 cents on the dollar compared to what he makes, all right? And the other thing you do, and Carrie talked about this, is I happen to have, I think, the strongest lifetime pro-union voting record in Congress. I think it's close to 100%. And I know is, as all of you know, that people in a union, and Carrie said this in a very powerful way, if you're in a union, you can negotiate decent wages and decent benefits. If you're not in a union, you're out there on your own, completely at the mercy of your employer. Right now in America, we got millions of people who are hurting financially. They want to join unions. Actually, unions have not been as popular for many, many years as they are today, because people see the value of a union. But all over this country, and I was just in Pittsburgh this afternoon actually, talking to workers who want to form a union, but their employer is making it very, very difficult for them to do so. So we have introduced legislation which is pretty simple. It says that if 50% plus 1 people in a bargaining unit sign a card saying they want to belong to a union, they will have a union. End of discussion. And if the employer refuses to negotiate a first contract, which happens now all of the time, that employer will be severely penalized. And the other thing we do is repeal Section 14B of the Taft-Hartley Act, which would eliminate so-called right-to-work legislation in states all over the country. And we believe that with that law in place, we could double the number of people in unions over a 4-year period, because millions of people want to join unions. And that would be so important in raising wages and benefits in this country. And that's something that we will fight for. Now, there's another issue out there that I want to spend a minute on that I know is on everybody's mind. You're hearing a whole lot about it, TV ads in Iowa about it, and that is health care. So let's deal with health care. How is our health care system working? My colleagues in the Senate, some of them think we have the greatest system in the world. All right. All right, good point. All right, some people do. All right, how great is this healthcare system? Let's talk about it for a minute. First of all, everybody here should know that we are spending today twice as much per capita on healthcare as do the people of any other country. Got it? Twice as much. That's a lot. Okay? So in other words, if I bought a car for $25,000 and you bought a car for $50,000 and my car ran better than your car, you got a problem. That's what you got. So we're spending $11,000. Think about it. $11,000 for every man, woman, and child in this country. And this is what you get for it. You got 87 million people who are uninsured or underinsured. Underinsured means that you have a large deductible and you don't go to the doctor when you should. Underinsured means that you may not have the 50 or 100 bucks to pay for a co-payment when you visit the doctor. Underinsured means that you cannot afford the prescription drugs that your doctor prescribes. Underinsured means that you may go bankrupt if you leave the hospital with a large bill. So what you got in America today is 30,000 people dying every year because they go to the doctor too late. You got, this is an amazing thing. I didn't know this until this year. I want you to think about it. 500,000 people go bankrupt because of medically related bills. Take a deep breath and think about it. If somebody makes an investment, decides to do something on Wall Street, or you decide to go to the casino down the road and gamble, and you lose all your money and you go bankrupt, people say, well, you know, it was your choice. You did something risky. People are going bankrupt because they were dealing with cancer or with heart disease or with Alzheimer's in the family or some other terrible illness. Does anybody in their right mind believe that in America people should suffer financial ruin because they were diagnosed with cancer? All right, and that's where we are. So you're thinking here, you're thinking of somebody who goes to the doctor and gets diagnosed with cancer, and they're saying, my God, what am I going to do? It's a shock. What doctor do I go to? What medicine? What treatment? And at the same time, they have to worry about how their family is going to pay the bill, if their family can pay the bill. I just talked to a woman today, Pittsburgh. She works at a hospital, in fact, the largest hospital in Pittsburgh. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. She has a very, very large bill. She's unable to pay it because she doesn't make a whole lot of money. And because she has not paid her bills on time, her credit score has been shot and her interest rates are going up. That's where she is right now. A whole lot of people in this country are in that position. All right, what is the antidote? What should we do? Why are we the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people? I live 50 miles away in the other Burlington, 50 miles away from the Canadian border. Anybody here know if you end up in the hospital in Canada for a month with serious surgery, what's the bill you get when you come out? It's zero, okay? They live longer than we do. Their healthcare system is as good or better than ours. And yet, they spend half as much per capita as we do. What we have got to do, it seems to me, is end a healthcare system which is based not on providing quality care to all people, but which is based on making huge profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies. A few months ago, I want you to hear this, a few months ago, I went from Detroit to Windsor, Ontario with a number of people from the Midwest who were dealing with diabetes. We bought insulin in Canada, the same product made by the same company for 1/10 of the price charged in the United States. And right now in this country, drug companies can charge any price they want for any product. And we are paying by far the highest prices in the world. So I think that when we're spending this much money and so many people are uninsured or underinsured, what we have got to do is expand Medicare to cover every man, woman, and child in this country. Medicare for all. So what does that mean exactly? Let me be as clear as I can be, because we're taking on the healthcare industry, who's going to lie a lot about what we're trying to do. We're taking on Trump and the Republicans, and we're taking on the Democratic establishment. All right? So you're going to hear a lot of misinformation. This is what our plan is. First of all, Medicare is a good program. We got to make it better. And that is we expand benefits to cover hearing aids, dental care, eyeglasses, and very importantly, home health care. All right? Because there are a lot of people who would prefer to stay at home rather than go to a nursing home, but they can't get the care in their homes. So that is what we do. We expand those benefits. Number two, right now, to be eligible for Medicare, you have to be 65. We lower the eligibility age in year 1 to 55. All right? Millions and millions of people who are 60, 63 will give their right arms to be able to get into Medicare. First year down to 55, next year down to 45, down to 35, fourth year, everybody is in the system. Now, some of you may say, well, that sounds fine, but how are you going to pay for it? Good question, fair question. Before I answer that, let me ask you, how are we paying for it now? All right, anybody here paying a premium? Anybody here paying a co-payment? Are one or two of you paying outrageous prices for prescription drugs? Yeah. Are some of you paying out-of-pocket expenses? That's how we are paying for it. All right. What are premiums that some of you are paying for, if you don't mind? Just want to get a sense. What? Yeah. All right. $1,200 a month is $14,000 a year. Do you have any deductibles? How much is your deductible? All right. And you got some prescription drug costs as well? Okay. This guy is paying, what's your name? Brian is paying at least $14,000 a year, right? That's just your premiums. All right? That's how we're paying for it. No doubt you're a billionaire and you can easily afford it, right? Okay. And you just stumbled into this room, made a mistake. All right, what else premiums? What else are people paying here for premiums? Anyone want to talk about that for a minute? For Medicare supplement, okay. So that's roughly $1,500 a year for that. A month, okay. For Medicare supplement, okay. That's for Medicare supplement. That's $3,600 a year just for that. Good point. Okay. What about prescription drugs? People paying a lot for prescription drugs? Anyone want to talk about that for a second? Same gentleman. $9,000 a month. What about, yes, ma'am. Right. So you got a great insurance. You pay them, but they don't cover it. They don't. Okay. Yes, sir. You pay $5,700 every 5 weeks? Yes, ma'am. Stand up if you could, please. Sorry. All right. $1,000 when he goes to Iowa City? That's how you're paying for it now. Yes, ma'am. right. That's right. That's right. You want to hear crazy in terms of prescription drugs? I mean, just what this woman, what's your name, ma'am? Barb. What Barb said. I mean, this is how crazy it is. Instead of providing the medicine, he ends up in the hospital, right? With pain and great cost to the system. One out of 5 Americans who go to the doctor, just think about this. I mean, this is, we talk about this functionality. The word means it's a crazy system. It doesn't make sense. People get sick, they go to the doctor. That's why you go to the doctor, because you're sick. Doctor writes out a prescription. 1 out of 5 people in America cannot afford to fill that prescription. So what happens to the people? Well, oftentimes they will get sicker. Maybe they'll end up in the hospital. Maybe they'll die, who knows? I was talking about insulin before. I learned when on that trip, you got 7.5 million people in this country who use insulin for diabetes. And all of you know, insulin is like oxygen. People with diabetes need insulin. It's not a choice. 1/4 of them ration their insulin. And they get sick. And occasionally we hear from people who die. This is a dysfunctional, cruel system, which is very, very expensive. So what do we do? How do we pay for our system? And let me be clear. Under Medicare for All, you go to any doctor you want. Go to the same doctor you're going to now. Go to any hospital you want to go to. There are no premiums, all right? Follow me. Premiums, gone. Co-payments, gone. This deductible thing, I want you all to think about the insanity of the word deductible. Think about it. You get health insurance because you want to be covered when you get sick. That's the function of health insurance, right? And yet you may have to pay, depending on your deductible, $5,000 or $10,000 out of your own pocket, which you don't have in many cases because of this insane thing called deductible. We're getting rid of deductibles, we get rid of out-of-pocket expenses, and nobody in America, because we're going to take on, and don't get me going on this issue, we're going to take on the greed and corruption and price fixing in the pharmaceutical industry. Nobody... And by the way, those ads you see and I were attacking Medicare for All, they are paid for by the drug companies. All right, you all know that, and the insurance companies. All right. On our Medicare for All, nobody pays more than $200 a year on prescription drugs. Now you say, oh, that sounds really great. How do you pay for this stuff? Well, this is how you pay for it. Number one, last year, the healthcare industry, the drug companies and the insurance companies made $100 billion in profit. Under our plan, they ain't going to make $100 billion in profit, that's for sure. But more importantly, the dysfunctionality of the current system is manifested in that if I went around this room, I would probably find dozens and dozens of different health insurance plans. You have a $5,000 deductible, you have a $10,000. You have this copayment, you have that copayment. You're eligible for these prescription drugs, you're in that network, you're in that network. You can go to this doctor, you can't, et cetera, et cetera. To administer the hundreds and hundreds of separate healthcare plans cost our country hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. So what we are talking about, building on what the Canadians and other people around the world have, a very simple system. All right, you're not paying any premiums and deductibles. What are you doing? What we are saying for workers, employers is another thing, but for workers right now, we're saying you're going to pay a 4% income tax with a $31,000 deductible. We exempt the first $31,000. What does that mean? The average family in America makes $60,000 a year. They're in the middle of the economy. If you exempt the first $31,000 from taxes, you're paying taxes on $29,000, which is roughly $1,200 a year for comprehensive health care. How's that? And we have different approaches. That's not the only way we raise money. There are other ways we raise money through progressive taxation, taxes on employers as well. And we can then, with that kind of money, and this is not a radical idea because we're starting from the premise that we're already spending twice as much as other countries. All right? So we can do that. But I got to tell you that we're up against the entire healthcare industry who loves the current system. They make huge profits. They pay their CEOs outrageous levels of compensation. All right. Let me stop right there for a moment. I want to just stay on healthcare. Who wants to tell me anything else about healthcare? Ask me a question about it. On healthcare. Am I saying something crazy? Does it make sense? Yeah.
Cool. It depends on who you go to, but like we have to go to a specific doctor to get even just to like talk about hormone stuff because a lot of doctors don't believe in like hormonal problems. But more so for like EDS, she's been diagnosed up at Iowa City and her doctor doesn't believe she has it. So there's just a lot of stuff like that where it's like depending on what doctor you go to, you know, they may not even believe that you have these things.
So what do you do?
Cry.
Okay. Yes, sir. Good question.
And
Hold the mic there if you want to, sir.
okay, and people that are at 100% disability out of the VA healthcare system, how are they going to switch over to Medicare and still get 100% disability?
Good question. The answer is they will do what they want. We maintain the VA healthcare system as a separate.
You're going to retain it?
Yes, absolutely.
I've got some paperwork, say here in Iowa, that they're not going to return.
Well, whoever told you that is lying.
Well, it's
I wrote the damn bill, as a matter of
it's a
fact.
Des Moines Register.
So I know what's in it. But let me just say, sir. No, I don't mean to be facetious. I really didn't. I know what's in the bill because I wrote it, and I happen to also be the former chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, so I know a little bit about VA stuff. What we understand, well, you know, it's the choice. If you're a veteran, I assume, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, you have a choice. You want to stay with the VA? That's great. You want to go to Medicare for All? That's great. But we understand that veterans have special issues, different issues. And I've talked to too many veterans who today are going to a private doctor who really doesn't know where they are coming from in terms of whether it is PTSD or other illnesses or injuries. They feel more comfortable at the VA. I respect that. We retain the VA. And if anyone tells you differently, honestly, sir, that's just not the truth. Okay, we retain the VA.
Okay.
Yup, got a hand there. Uh-oh, he's looking at his phone. I'm in trouble.
All right, Mr. Donald Trump, keep going, man. You're doing a good job. You know what? I'm a liberal. I'm a union man.
Oh, let him out. Let him out with the microphone. You don't have to yell, sir. It's okay.
You know what?
Yeah.
I don't agree with anything you say. I voted for you in 2016, and I've been to Vietnam and seen what socialism has done. Is destroyed my wife's country. Yeah, you can laugh all you want, but they're putting concentration camps and everything. And you guys say, oh, there's concentration camps here. You know what? And I'm sick and tired of you lying because you're wealthy. You're $2.5 billion.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you. It's not quite a question. Okay, sir. Sir, you had your chance. Okay. Thank you very much for your contribution to the discussion. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right, sir, you don't want to disrupt the meeting. You had a chance to talk. Okay. Sir, you had a chance. Okay. Anybody else have a question or a comment? Sir, right there. Stand up. Can we get him a mic? Okay. All right. Oh. Look, anybody is allowed to speak. I'm not afraid of anybody But we don't want people disrupting meetings and being impolite. Anyone has a point of view, you disagree with me? Last I heard, this is America. You have it entitled.
Yeah.
Sorry. But just don't disrupt the meeting. Yes, sir.
This is actually you versus some of your other candidates. I'm going to say, like Pete Buttigieg says, oh, well, if you want Medicare, you can have that. If you want to keep your plan, how would he pay for that? Because if you're not taking all of that profit stuff out, where are you going to get the money from?
You can't, I mean, it just doesn't work. If you maintain a system where millions of people continue to get their their insurance from their employers, for a start, the average worker in America, making about $60,000 a year, is paying $12,000 for their health care. All right? Well, some will pay more and some will pay less. But $12,000 is about the average. I don't think that and that's 20% of somebody's income. If Buttigieg or anybody else wants to maintain that system, I think that is really unfair to the working families of this country. All right? I've just suggested to you that we can substantially lower health care costs for working families. And second of all, when you talk about having a system where you're going to have private insurance and you're going to have your option going in, the rich and the healthy will go into private insurance. The poor and the sick will go into Medicare, costing that system an enormous amount of money. So it's a failed idea, in my view.
That's what I thought. That's why I'm for you. I have friends, he's got some other good ideas. But
I mean, it sounds like a great idea. You can do anything you want, but, you ultimately are going to have to decide whether we have a system which is designed to make huge profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies, or a system which guarantees health care to all people as a human right. Yes, sir. Let's get the gentleman a mic.
I'd like to say that I think you are the future and the past, but the future the most. And this gentleman that was here, he proved my point that if the Republicans have such a great health care, let all the Democrats find out what it is.
Thank you. And by the way, let's say a word on Trump on health care. As you know, when Trump ran for president, he promised the American people that he would provide health care to everybody. You remember that? Okay. He lied. I think right now we know he lies a whole lot. But all of you know that he came within one vote, and that vote was the late John McCain of Arizona, came within one vote of throwing 32 million people off the health care they have. Thank you. Health care, any other issues? Ma'am, did you want to say a word? Oh, boy.
I have some friends that have depression, bipolar, different things. Their psychiatry and their psychologists they don't even pay hardly anything on it. And these kids have, small wages, and it's horrible.
Absolutely right. We have, related to the opioid epidemic is an epidemic of mental health crises all across this country. And I can tell you, as a senator, we get calls in our office, as I expect every senator does, from family members who are desperate in trying to find mental health care for a family member and just can't find it, that it's affordable. We don't have enough psychiatrists, we don't have enough psychologists, we don't have enough mental health counselors. Thank you for raising that issue. And again, people ask me, will Medicare for all cover mental health issues? And of course it will. Mental health is as much a health issue as a broken arm or a broken leg, Yep. grab that mic, sir.
Yeah, I was a machinist here in Burlington at Siemens for over 31 years. Lost my job. They shipped our jobs overseas. I lost my health care. And I want to say, you're the only person that stood up for us. We contacted Donald Trump, Governor Reynolds, Senators Grassley and Ernst, and they all turned their back on us. You were the only politician that stood up for us and said this plant closing was wrong, and I want to thank you for that.
I have voted against virtually all of the trade agreements, I think all of them that came across my desk, NAFTA and PNTR with China. Because these trade agreements, by and large, are negotiated behind closed doors by CEOs of large corporations who could care less about workers or farmers. And I'll tell you something, what I get upset about is that many of these factories that shut down, they're not losing money. Now, I don't know, they're making money. But they figure rather than paying you $20 an hour, they could pay somebody, where did they move, to Mexico? Right. So what they are saying, all that they are saying is, it's not that we're not making money here, but we can go to Mexico and pay people $2 an hour, or China and pay them $3, whatever it may be. And that's wrong. And I want to just tell you this, that I am sick and tired of corporate greed. I am tired of large, profitable corporations shutting down here and moving abroad. And by the way, some of these very same corporations end up not paying a nickel in federal income tax. That's right. All right, thank you. And one of the things we're going to do is we are going to say to these large corporations that if you think you're going to get a federal contract by throwing workers out on the street, by trying to break unions, by paying people inadequate wages, you got another guess coming. You're getting at the end of the line, not on the front of the line. Okay, other questions or comments? Let me get to somebody else and ask the first one yet. I see a hand over there, woman in red.
Governor Kim Reynolds passed over 100 exemptions for raw sewage to be dumped on the snow. What can you do to help ensure the protection of our water supply?
Okay. Well, we will have, unlike Trump, we will strengthen the EPA and we will enforce all federal environmental laws. I honestly did not know this. You know, one of the interesting things about running for president is you learn a lot. Go around the country and say, oh my God, I didn't know that. You know, we all had heard a few years ago about Flint, Michigan, right? And kids were being poisoned with lead in the water. Now, I met with the parents there. It is horrible. It was a terrible tragedy. And guess what, though? If you think Flint, Michigan is the only town in America where people are having serious water problems, you'd be wrong. All over this country, we are seeing factory farms, etc., polluting our water supply. And you have many, many tens of thousands of homes in America. Go to California, whole sections in farm country where people can't drink the water coming out of their faucets. All right? Fracking is part of that, absolutely. That's another issue. All right. So I happen to believe that we have one planet called Earth, which takes me, and we have to preserve that planet. We have to make sure that our kids breathing clean air, eating clean food, healthy food, all right? And drinking clean water. But you raise another issue, and I want to go there for a moment. Some of you may agree with me, some of you may not, but I got to tell you what I think here. We got a president who thinks that climate change is a hoax. Well, I would tend to agree with you. But here, in this case, he is not only endangering, and this is, I gotta make this point, he's not only endangering the well-being of you and you and you, He's endangering big time our children and grandchildren, not only in America, but around the entire world. All right, so let me say a word on this. Because what the scientists are now telling us, the scientists for years have always said, climate change is real, of course. Every year the Earth is getting warmer. They're telling us that climate change is obviously caused by human activity, the emission of carbon, and they're telling us that climate change has done change, has impacted our country and the world. But they are now telling us something different. What they are now telling us is they underestimated the severity of the problem. They underestimated the speed in which the polar caps are now melting and the speed in which the ocean is now warming. And that means we're seeing sea levels rise at a level that they had not anticipated, which means if we don't get our act together in the United States and around the world, coastal cities, and I'm talking about Miami, I'm talking about Charleston, South Carolina, talking about New York City, major cities in our country and around the world will be partially or completely underwater. We are talking about extreme weather disturbances. Some of you may have seen a couple of weeks ago that in Italy, Venice, Italy, was underwater. Same thing happened in Houston, Texas. Unprecedented torrential rain, massive floods. I was in Paradise, California. That town mean anything to anybody? A few years ago, they had this, you got to go there to see it. It's unbelievable. Is this, modest, I think 25,000 people, small town. 86 people were killed by a wildfire. Virtually the entire town burned down. I was there and saw it. It was really amazing to see. Right now, as we speak, Australia is burning. Massive fires all over Australia. I don't have to tell you what you have seen in California. Unprecedented number of fires and the severity of the fires. And what the scientists tell us is we have every reason to believe that crisis will only get worse. And here in Iowa and in the Midwest, what the scientists are telling us what drought will do is cut the growing season for farmers. They're going to start off with more mud on the farms, on the land, shorter growing seasons, production will be less, and the quality of the corn, etc., will not be as high as it is right now. And you multiply that all over the world, you're talking about severe food shortages or food prices soaring. The United Nations is telling us is that when people cannot grow food or find drinking water all around the world, they're going to migrate by the tens and tens of millions. And when you have that kind of migration, you have conflict and you have war. So we have a very, very critical situation. I wish I didn't have to tell you that. I wish I could tell you, well, maybe we'll build a few more solar plants or a few more wind turbines. We got to do more than that. I got to tell you, some of you may not agree with me, I am a strong proponent, and our proposal in this campaign is based on the Green New Deal. All right? And what that means, I have been criticized because this proposal that I brought forth, which is the most comprehensive proposal ever brought forth by any federal candidate. People say, Bernie, that costs a lot of money. They're right. It does cost a lot of money. But you tell me, and I want you to think about it, what is the alternative to saving the planet for our kids and future generations? How much is too little? And I want you also to be thinking about it. I've got 4 kids, and I got 7 very beautiful grandchildren. And I don't want those kids to be looking me in the eye 10, 20 years from now and say, Grandpa, didn't you know what was going on, what the scientists were saying? Why did you allow it to happen? I think it's true for me. It's true for everybody in this room. We owe it from a moral perspective to our kids and our grandchildren to make sure that we leave them a planet that is healthy and is habitable. That's what we have to do. Here in Iowa, you have done a very good job in terms of wind. You got about 1/3 of your electricity from wind. That's great. You're one of the leaders in the country. But nationally, we've got to do more. We have to invest in energy efficiency. We have to invest in a non-fossil fuel transportation system. We have to invest very heavily in wind and solar and other sustainable energies. And when we do that, by the way, the good news here is we can create up to 20 million good-paying jobs manufacturing those products in America. So that is an issue that all of us have got to pay attention, something I feel very, very strongly about. The last issue I want to talk about has been given a note to be reminded of this, which touches on other issues. You may not think it's the most important issue in the world, but it does touch on something else. A couple of, I don't know, weeks ago or a month ago, Major League Baseball announced in their wisdom that they were going to eliminate baseball, minor league baseball, in 42 communities around the United States. Now, they must not like the name Burlington because they want to eliminate the Burlington Bees. They want to eliminate the team in my hometown as well, Burlington, Vermont. So you got Major League Baseball, which is mostly, the teams are mostly owned by billionaires, owned by very wealthy guys. This is a business that last year Major League Baseball made $1.2 billion in profit. You got major league teams that are signing star ball players for hundreds of millions of dollars. But in their wisdom, they think they just don't have the resources to maintain a team like the Burlington Bees or the Vermont Lake Monsters in my community. That's the name of our team. There are weirder names. That's another story why we call it the Lake Monsters. Has to do with Lake Champlain. All right, won't go there. All right, tomorrow, as a matter of fact, right here in Burlington, we'll be meeting with some of the representatives of the three teams here in Iowa. Three teams in Iowa are selected by Major League Baseball to be eliminated. I brought, when I was mayor of Burlington in the 80s, I brought minor league baseball to Burlington, Vermont. We had a double-A team. Turned out to be a great team. A lot of the ball players made it to the major leagues. They won the Eastern League Championships 3 years in a row. Point is, I saw with my own eyes what minor league baseball can do for a community. You know, in a world, in a nation where we're politically divided, probably that gentleman there even roots for the Burlington Bees. You know. And I'll tell you what I especially like about minor league baseball is, I don't know what they charge here, but in Burlington, Vermont, I think it's $7 to get into the game. So a family can go, bring the kids, and the kids get the autographs of the ball players. The ball players are usually very nice. And it's really a great family activity, and people really feel good about it. So we are saying in a very loud and clear voice that at a time when Major League Baseball has an exemption, they have an exemption. What's the exemption they have? Antitrust exemption. All right. They have an antitrust exemption, plus the fact they have received hundreds of millions of dollars from communities all over America to build their stadiums, the Yankee Stadium, other stadiums. People build the stadiums for these billionaires. So we think if baseball is called the national pastime, which it is, if the president throws out the ball in the first game and all that stuff, you know, it's part of what we are as Americans. And communities all over this country enjoy minor league baseball. So we are going to do everything that we can to make sure that these 42 communities do not lose the baseball that they currently have. So I don't even know. I was told that the Burlington Bees have been here for a rather long time, 100 years or something. Do people enjoy the team? I don't even know much about it. Is it popular around here? All right, so we're going to work with your local officials to make sure that they don't shut down baseball here in Burlington, Iowa, or Burlington, Vermont. We're in this one together. All right, well, let me just conclude by saying this. We live in an unprecedented moment in American history. And my job is not only to win the Democratic nomination and to defeat Donald Trump. My job is to work with the American people to help transform this country so that we have an economy and a government that works for all of us and not just the 1%. And that's what it's about. So I'm here today, I think with your help, I think we're going to do very well in Iowa. I think we can win here with your help. I think we can win the Democratic nomination. I think we could beat Trump here and around the country. But the point that I want to make is I'm here not just to ask for your help in defeating Trump. I'm here to ask for your help in transforming the country. Because here's a truth that no other candidate will tell you. And that is that now, no matter how honest or well-intentioned a president may be, he or she cannot do it alone, because we are taking on incredibly powerful forces. We are taking on Wall Street and their power, the insurance companies, the drug companies, the fossil fuel industry, military-industrial complex, prison-industrial complex. A lot of very powerful people out there who have a lot of money. And the only way change ever comes about is when millions of people stand up and demand that change. So as President of the United States, I'll be coming back here and asking for your help to make sure that every worker in America earns a decent wage, to make sure that every American has health care as a human right, to make sure that all of our kids, regardless of their income, can get a higher education, to make sure that we lead the world in combating climate change and dealing with criminal justice and immigration reform. So there is a lot of work to be done, but I am optimistic. I go around the country, go around Iowa a lot. I am optimistic about the fighting spirit of the American people. Let's go forward together. Let's defeat Trump. Let's transform this country. Thank you very much.